Hello everyone, and welcome to another Unscripted review with me, Freebiewits, and today we're taking a look at Hades, a game about dying again and again and again, and then getting back up again and again and again and again. Now before we begin, I should say there are a few spoilers here and there. I'll try to edit around the story spoilers, but there's going to be mechanical spoilers, like the different weapons you can get and the bosses you can face, that sort of thing. Anyways, Hades, for all of you who don't actually know, is a roguelike where you play Zagreus, a prince of Hades, trying to escape the place by smashing things, killing things, and then making his way up to the surface. To help him on this journey, he gets boons from the other gods who want him to get out of Hades as well, or hell, or whatever you want to call it. Besides the weapons that help him slice, smash, or shoot stuff, these boons that the other gods give you can modify the way your weapon behaves. So some of them might make it so lightning strikes the enemy after you hit them. Some of them make your weapons debuff the enemy, other times they'll put a dot on them, that sort of thing. And of course, they also affect your other moves. You can dash, and this can make your dash do damaging stuff or debuffing, or make your dash go even further. You have bonuses to your abilities that let you cast your spell better. Oh yeah, you have a spell. It's a crystal thing that you shoot out and does range damage. And once it hits enemy, it stays on them, and then you can kill the enemy to get the gem back. So you only have a limited amount of these gems. Some of these abilities deal extra damage if the gem is stuck on them, or let you deal extra damage to them, I believe, that sort of thing. So sometimes having a gem stuck in an enemy and having 0 gems on yourself can be helpful. And of course, there are different boons that change how this gem behaves. So normally it's just a shoot out and it hits the enemy, but there are gem upgrades that make them do a shotgun close range sort of blast instead. Now, each weapon has 2 attacks. It has a light attack and a heavy attack, usually. It's a bit different from weapon to weapon. They all can do different stuff. But suffice to say, based on the weapon you're wielding, you will have a different playstyle. My preferred playstyle is the fists. Now, the default attack just lets you do a rapid series of punches, but I just like doing the big uppercut. If you're watching on screen right now, you may have noticed my uppercut pulls in enemies. So I kind of spam that. It's a bit overpowered, at least for me. It's like playing on easy mode. I don't recommend you do this if you want a bit more variety, but for me, I find it's fun. There are other cool weapons that you can unlock that do a load of different other stuff, but this is how I prefer to play, with, well, punchy, uppercut, super smashing stuff. Now, having the best weapons don't mean jack if you don't have equally badass enemies to fight. They can be simple little things that follow you and attack you and charge into you every now and then, to the big on bosses that have a bunch of different abilities that you kinda have to read and counter to get around. Now, the cool thing about these bosses is, for the most part, you can interact and talk with them as well. And here's the thing, when you die in game, you actually die in universe and get back up again. All your deaths aren't just a reset button like many other video games. No. When you die, everyone will acknowledge the fact that you're dying. It's a linear progression. You actually have to die to progress the story. If you die too many times and stuff like that, it doesn't matter. The game, you can't really fail the game because you're always making progress to some degree, even from a mechanical standpoint. If you die, there's this currency called darkness, which you can use to incrementally make yourself stronger in one way or another. Between runs, you lose all the boons that the other gods gave you, but you get to keep this darkness thing. In fact, speaking of darkness, there are other currencies. There are gems, which can upgrade your starting point, which I'll talk about in a second, and gold, which you lose all of if you don't spend it in the actual run itself. The gold can be used to buy more boons or health ups, max hit points, that sort of thing. Anyways, the NPCs and the emeralds. The emeralds can be used to unlock different parts of your starting base, the place where you go to when you first die. And that's where all the other NPCs are. And you can build the relationships with them, which can once again help you on your run. You can address their story beats, their side missions, that sort of thing. They'll give encouragement to you if you keep dying. They'll be like, oh, hey, Zagreus, you died again to this thing. That's too bad, but I'm sure you can do it. They're all very wholesome in that kind of way. And Zagreus is surprisingly lovable for a character who literally sasses off his dad the way he does. But it's kind of understandable. His dad is kind of a... He's a dick. Let's just say that, alright? So you go through this game, you get bonuses, you die, you come back a little stronger, and eventually you do get out of hell. Now I won't say what happens because it's all a big story thing, but it's really, really, really fun. A bit tedious at some points because there's only so many ways you can punch an enemy, and that's more my fault because I try to focus on punching and such like that. But eventually you'll get to a point in the game where the only thing you can enjoy is the progression of like achievements and such like that after you finish the story, which you eventually will. Assuming you stick with it and such, your stubbornness will be your best friend here. Now there is a god mode that makes you slightly more buffer. It's not a real god mode like you'd assume in other games where you're literally invincible, but it will make you tougher after each death, which makes the entire run much easier. There's no penalty to actually doing this, so if you just want to experience the story and don't want to put in the hours to mastering the combat, this is what you want to do. Now, besides delightful characters and the awesome weapons, I also want to talk about the mechanics in general from a meta point of view. And this is a trend that I've been noticing with games a lot more recently. In the old days, when it comes to video games, if you lose, you lose. You gotta start all the way back from the beginning. In certain other games like, say, Counter-Strike, Dota, so on and so forth, if you lose, you lose. If you win, you win. It's sort of the goal of the game. It's the end state, as I would call it. In games like Hades, there is no real end state. There's no specific mechanic that says, oh, this thing triggered, therefore you lose, you gotta start from the beginning, you can't go ahead anymore. In this, if you die and lose, you can still continue. It's part of the story in universe and such like that. It's the point of the game. Losing is the point, and not in the fun way like RimWorld or Dwarf Fortress? That's what it's called. I apologize. This is unscripted, as you can know. It's not the point. Those games where you lose, you have a great story to tell where everything goes wrong. No. In Hades, you progress by losing. And you will progress. And eventually, like I said, if you stick with it long enough, you will eventually win. Whether you're a beat-em-up enthusiast, a roguelike enjoyer, or someone who likes a good story, I think this game will have something for you. Now, moving away from the review section of this, well, unscripted review, I just want to talk about about Larp. In Larp, when you die, generally you come back. At least in the Larps I've experienced myself. And for the most part, they have an in-universe way of explaining it. I kind of want to see a Larp where, when you die, you actually lose your powers, but as you fight and such like that, you get more. So you can get bonus abilities, bonus max hit points, whatever, and you'd still have a meta progression to keep yourself boosted. So if you play this LARP for like, say, 5 years, you'll still be stronger than the complete newbie who starts from level 1 or 0. But at the same time, if you're a newbie, you can still get these bonuses and buffs from the gods, or your in-universe LARP's explanation of these powers, and still get a taste of power. It sort of balances that idea of newbies getting completely crushed. You probably still will, but at least you'll get the chance to overpower the enemy if you work well enough at it. How this would balance and such at LARP would be up to the game designers specifically, but that's my idea for LARP. This is my unscripted review for Hades, and I hope you've all had a wonderful day. Bye-bye.